So a lot of questions remaining for the president, Trump, not just about what was discussed in that room and what might be happening now, but also how that all happened back there. It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say, and got his photo next to the president and then left.
Trump's been making headlines as he serves as the gopher between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He recently met with Putin in Alaska in what even Fox News is acknowledging was a disastrous summit, and afterward, he hosted Zelensky at the White House, and that visit is attracting attention for all the wrong reasons. And we'll get into those meetings in a little bit, but first, musician Jack White, most of you probably know him from the White Stripes, he had some harsh words for Trump's absolutely horrendous makeover of the White House. Now, of all the things to be mad at during this presidency, this is far from the worst thing that Trump and or his administration have done or are trying to do, but it is nonetheless offensive. It's like he spray painted cheap decals with the most lurid gold that he could find and stuck them all over the walls of the White House. It's both gaudy and sallow. It reeks of the worst of the new money aesthetic. It is horribly meretricious. Trump outs himself as a histrionic wannabe. It's no surprise that the White House now more closely resembles a knocked-off version of the Kremlin. Well, here is what Jack White had to say about it in an Instagram post featuring a picture of Trump and Zelensky in the White House. Look at how disgusting Trump has transformed the historic White House. It's now a vulgar, gold-leafed and gaudy professional wrestler's dressing room. Can't wait for the UFC match on the front lawn, too. He's almost fully achieved the movie Idiocracy. Look at his disgusting taste. Would you even buy a used car from this con man, let alone give him the nuclear codes? A gold-plated Trump Bible would look perfect up on that mantle with a pair of Trump shoes on either side, wouldn't it? What an embarrassment to American history. Also pictured in this photograph, a real leader of a nation in a black suit. And look, I'm not exactly a minimalist myself. I'm more partial to warm gold tones than I am to silvers, but that is because I have warm undertones, right? So that makes sense for me. Trump, I suppose, it can be argued, is also warm toned because he is orange. So there's that. But as far as ornamentation goes, there's really not a whole lot that can complement his wildly unnatural coloring very well. And when I'm not doing this, I'm decorating. This is my side hustle, right? I love patterns and bold colors, and I get that not everything needs to be for everyone, but there really is something to be said for restraint. Of course, what would a man whose personal value as a human has only ever come from his access to money know about restraint? But something else happened at the meeting in the White House. Trump's been finding it more and more difficult to escape rumors of his failing mental and physical health, with his bruised hands badly covered up with unblended makeup making headlines, as well as his constantly swollen ankles. But in his meeting with Zelensky, in a photo posted by the White House on X, both of Trump's ankles were expertly obscured by a prop, a model of Air Force One sitting on the coffee table. However, in all of this, stories of Trump's failing health, his inability to recognize foreign officials or even officials in his own cabinet who are standing or sitting right in front of him, his incessant ranting and raving on social media, his references to a Russian city that hasn't been called Leningrad for decades. The real story is whether or not Trump's meeting with Putin and Zelensky have been fruitful, and the overall answer to that is no, they have not been. Immediately following his meeting with Putin, which took place in Alaska on U.S. soil, the Russian president, not Trump, was the first to emerge from the meeting and address the press in Russian. This was highly unusual, as the leader of the host nation would normally make the first remarks. It was so unusual, in fact, that even the Fox News correspondent was upset by it.
Jacqui, I was surprised no questions. I was surprised no details on what progress was made.
I think you and me both, Brian, and everyone else in this room was also surprised. We were told that we were going to have an opportunity to put questions to both leaders after a joint press conference in the event that the meeting went well enough that they could set the stage for a second meeting. And the President Trump said if that didn't happen, he was likely to call off the joint presser and just address the media solo and then send Putin home. Neither of those things happened. And what was really stunning to me as someone who's been in a lot of these press conferences is there were a few things that were very unusual. You had Putin come out and address the press first. I mean, we are on U.S. soil here, and that left the media scrambling to get their headsets in. Usually it is the leader of the country, the host country of a summit, that speaks first and addresses the room in their language. But Putin started right off in Russian, and we all had to get our headsets on and listen to him rattle off this diatribe about the history of the U.S.-Russia relationship, making some allusions to something that we didn't get many details on, but also, without knowing the full background of it, there was something that he said that was a little bit alarming, I thought, that seems like some of the things that he has done in the past, setting up false flags and that kind of thing, saying that we hope that Ukraine doesn't do anything to sabotage the progress that we made today, knowing full well that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire unconditionally for the last several months, and it has been Russia that has not agreed to a ceasefire. That was President Trump's main objective today. And when we did hear from the president, he said, we didn't get there, but we think that we can.
Get where? Trump told the press that he didn't even really have a plan going into the meeting with Putin, and that seems evident because by the time he came out, the deal maker in chief had failed to strike a deal, and there were no guarantees of a ceasefire. There wasn't even a second meeting that was set up so that a deal could maybe be struck then. Meanwhile, during Trump's meeting with Zelensky, the New York Times reports that Trump says the U.S. won't send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. President Trump has promised security guarantees for Ukraine as part of an eventual peace agreement with Russia, but he gave an assurance that American troops would not be deployed. As far as what was discussed in the meeting, the White House meetings produced smiles and warmth among Mr. Trump, Mr. Zelensky, and European allies, but few public signs of tangible progress toward an end to the war. That will require follow-through from Mr. Trump, potentially sweeping concessions from Mr. Zelensky, and a willingness by Russia to stop attacking Ukraine. Overnight, Russia launched hundreds of drones and missiles at Ukraine, causing injuries and damage to infrastructure and energy facilities, Ukrainian officials said, a day after at least 14 people were killed in Russian strikes. Trump posted on social media that he is now trying to arrange a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, something that Putin had previously not been interested in attending. It's also a little trite that there's all this emphasis on the fact that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire while Russia has not, because obviously, right? Russia is the one who invaded Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine wants that to stop. And of course, Putin would not want to stop unless he can be sure that he is getting at least something in return. Otherwise, what was it all for? If Russia gets to keep Crimea after all of this, great. I hope it was all worth it. Even if Trump tries to swing this as a victory on his part, that he finally negotiated a deal to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine, whatever. He's already been reminding the anchors of Fox News that this invasion never would have happened in the first place if he had been president. But, there's no way for him to prove that, so it's easy for him to say things like that. He takes credit for a bunch of things he doesn't or didn't do already, so sure, I'll let him have this one. The truth is, it really doesn't matter who gets credit. It's about the Ukrainian people getting back to living their lives, however and whenever that actually happens, all right? That's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.